Morning, everybody. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about something God gave me. Kind of interesting. Sometimes God will give you things that are in the Bible. Sometimes God will give you things that He says to you in prayer. And sometimes God will just say things to you. And God said something to me today that was important, and I wanted to express to everybody. But the best way to do it is to tell you a story about a man that I find to be one of the greatest men I've ever known. And I'm biased on this. It was my great-grandfather. He was a man who helped train horses for the cavalry for the United States. He was a man who was a farmer. He was also someone who was probably the kindest heart you'd ever met. He lost his daughter when my father was about 14 years old, which when he lost his daughter, his family took on the responsibility of raising his grandkids. And then after that, even went further to helping raise his great-grandkids, which would be me and my sisters and brothers. They helped in that endeavor, but particularly I was probably the best or most benefited from this man and his love for people. What I find interesting is he was the epitome of manhood. I mean, he was a boxer. He had done. I mean, he'd always shook his head because his neck was had gotten kicked by a horse or something along those lines. It's been a long time since he's passed, so I don't remember all the stories. But one thing that always stood out is that in my life, he was one of those people that he was the epitome of manhood. And the reason I bring that up is the one major thing that always comes to mind about my great-grandfather was that he would always put these sticks, popsicle sticks, in the dog's water dish. And he did that so that the bugs would not drown. Why do I talk about bugs drowning? That's always spoken to me. It's something that is deep within me. It's something that if you were to talk about bugs drowning in dog water, most people wouldn't think anything, but for me it has meaning. And today, while I was getting ready for work, I see this mosquito hawk or whatever they're called, and it gets caught in a spider web, and spiders go into town on, weird, but it's what God spoke to me through. And he said very clearly that look what happens to my people when the enemy gets my people in his web, and he starts wrapping himself around and entrapping them in that web. And that's gone on with all of us in all of our lives. But the problem is we will walk past someone that is clearly hung up in a web. We'll walk past someone that the enemy is clearly jumping on at that very moment. And we'll just move on with our lives. In fact, we'll give ourselves excuses like, well, he's a drunk, or he'll just go back to doing drugs, or he's hurt somebody I care about, or she's done something that's so audacious, so terrible that, I just can't. It's not worth my time. And I look back to my great-grandfather, and he spent time putting popsicle sticks in a water bowl for bugs. But we walk past people that are clearly caught in the web, where the enemy is clearly getting ready to devour them. And they're struggling to get loose of the web. Some of them hardly know what's going on. They don't realize they're even in the web. And we walk past them because we believe something, or we feel something, or we think we know better, or we think it's not worth our time. What is your time worth? What is your time for? That's That's what God hit me with today. I was asked yesterday about the fact that I'm not doing videos every day anymore. And at first I think, well, man, I'm busy and I'm really trying, but I'm busy. But what I realize is this person says to me, these videos are making a difference in my life. It's worth my time. It's worth my time. It's what my time is really for. It's what our time is for. These people that are caught in webs, these people that are the enemy is devouring. Sometimes there are family members. Sometimes they're people we don't even know. Sometimes they're people that are just sitting on the street. Sometimes they're sitting in a big office building. Sometimes they're people who have all the money and seems like they have everything. Are they worth our time? Or is the time that we have better spent on making sure we get the next big toy, or making sure that we get the next big promotion, or making sure that our family is happy in the way that they're living? What is our time worth? What are we walking away from? What is the enemy looking at us, watching us walk past as he seriously devours those that we care about? How many times do we watch the enemy take over someone right in front of us, and because we're too busy, and because we're too important, and because our lives are too full of other things, we just sit and walk past those things that are happening where our brothers and sisters are caught in a web of death and destruction? And I think, man, how many times a day do I walk past that? How many times a day is my life too important while someone else's life is being devoured? I know it's probably deeper than you expected to go this morning, but I implore you to look around and see who's caught in that web and free them. Free them from that web. Help them to find a way out and get the enemy off of them. That's what God gave me this morning, guys. I love y'all. God bless y'all.